Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 15th of May 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting in the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with a statement that has come from the Foreign Office in Pakistan, where the Foreign Office spokesperson has rejected the Indian leaders' rhetoric against Pakistan. We always have seen the Indian leaders, whether it be Narendra Modi, whether it be other important leaders in India, specifically pertaining to BJP, who have been using the Pakistan card, A, to malign Pakistan, B, to destabilize Pakistan, C, to put all blame on Pakistan whenever anything happens in their own country, and then ridicule Pakistan. This is exactly what the Foreign Office has referred to and has asked the Indian politicians to refrain from involving Pakistan in their electoral discourse, as it accused them of exploiting anti-Pakistan sentiment to stir nationalistic fervor, a tactic that is aimed at gaining electoral advantages. Nothing new there, but India needs to be reminded time and again of that. This is going to be our first segment. Then we are going to talk about climate change. Pakistan, of course, has been grappling with the profound effects of climate change since quite some time, which includes shifting unpredictable weather patterns. But this time we are hearing of heat waves that are also going to affect the region, including Pakistan. These heat waves and so many other effects are also because of this climate change and the effects of that, the fossil fuel burning that is causing more and more damage to our ecosystem with every passing year. What is the responsibility of all those countries that have pledged in different COPs to do the needful? This is what we will discuss in different factors, and of course there are different elements in our environment also that are giving us indicators of climate change and the effects of climate change, like thousands of years old trees, like the heat patterns, like forest fires, and so on and so forth. This is going to be our second segment. Then we are going to talk about Shaheed Major Babar Naazi, who was martyred in an intelligence-based operation against terrorists. His funeral prayers were offered in Job in Balochistan. Senior military and civil officials and representatives of public and civil administration participated in the funeral prayers. These are our front lines of defense, those who lay down their lives for our motherland, and we need to be cognizant of all the sacrifices that they have made and continue to make. Finally, Google has unveiled an artificial intelligence that can find lost specs, meaning of course the glasses that you wear on your eyes. These AI systems are now able to interpret information and images via a phone camera, as you can see in the parallel window, in videos and sounds, and in spoken language. And this has been shown off by Google in one of the latest meets with the different sections of society. Now, a prototype AI-powered assistant is running on a phone, on this phone that you can see in the images, and was able to answer the age-old question, where did I put my glasses? That and more is what AI will be able to answer in the coming days. And this is going to be our last story of the day. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Foreign Office spokesperson's statement that rejects Indian leaders' rhetoric against Pakistan. She has said, and I want to quote this, we outrightly reject irresponsible statements which cover a wide array of topics, including the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, counter-terrorism efforts, state of bilateral relations, and nuclear capabilities. We've been joined by Maheen Shafeeq. She is a regional affairs expert, joins us in the studios. Maheen, thank you very much to have joined us. Let's begin with the Foreign Office spokesperson's statement. She said, we are witnessing an alarming surge in anti-Pakistan rhetoric from various Indian leaders amidst the ongoing Lok Sabha election campaign. We outrightly reject these irresponsible statements which cover a wide array of topics. I have just mentioned them: Jammu and Kashmir dispute, counter-terrorism efforts, state of bilateral relations, and nuclear capabilities. Is India resorting to such statements at this juncture a deliberate attempt? We've seen that before as well, but this time it is being exaggerated. What's your take?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. This is a very important subject that we're talking about. India's anti-Pakistan rhetoric is not new. We have seen that in last elections as well, and then previous in 2014 as well. And throughout this election season, we have seen a huge rise in anti-Muslim rhetoric. In the manifestos of both BJP, Congress, the two major political parties, they have not mentioned Pakistan as such. But at this point, BJP and its leaders have been repeatedly targeting Pakistan because it appears that they are losing ground. as they intended to target around 400 seats, but majority of the analysts are very speculative about this goal. A majority of the analysts are of the view that BJP is going to score seats barely over 200. And at max, people have said that they are going to reach 300, but nowhere close to 370 and 400. So these are the reasons why BJP feels like it needs to galvanize its voter bank as well.
And it always uses the Pakistan card for that.
Pakistan and anti-Muslim rhetoric. And this coming out right now, the statement of the Foreign Office coming out right now, because we have seen in these statements by the BJP leaders that they're projecting more of, initially it was just targeting Pakistan, but now they're projecting the idea of Akhand Bharat, which encompasses taking over all of the neighboring countries as well, including Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, and it extends even to Afghanistan. In this statement, it also mentions that Pakistan is ready to take any action, any strategic action that is required to counter such acts. So this shows Pakistan's resolve to counter any Indian malicious attempts or acts that they're trying to project now, and especially through these campaigns.
All of these statements, as the Foreign Office spokesperson says, reflect an unhealthy and entrenched obsession with Pakistan. Nothing new there as well, we've discussed that. And reveal a deliberate intent to exploit hyper-nationalism for electoral gains. Nothing new there as well. These also signify a deliberate attempt, a desperate attempt rather, to deflect attention from mounting domestic and international criticism. Therein lies the point. Will India manage to do that, deflect the attention from the mounting domestic and international criticism, as it has tried in the past with the narratives and false flag operations?
First of all, I would like to rephrase it. It's mostly, there are other political parties as well, but it's mostly BJP who's pursuing this narrative or this agenda of targeting Pakistan and their excessive obsession with Pakistan. We've seen that in 2019 as well, with all the false flag operations and targeting Pulwama and Balakot incident. And this has become very obvious right now. What BJP is trying to do is they're trying to make echo chambers within their country where people only listen to what their leaders have to say. And all of these aspects of human rights violation or targeting journalists or targeting opposition, it has gathered major attention worldwide. It's being discussed in Washington, major Western capitals, and how BJP is manipulating using all tools available on its toolkit to counter its opposition. And this is the major aspect that's being discussed right now. So internationally, India is gaining a lot of attention on its democratic backslide. Several of the analysts and state spokespersons have mentioned this. But regarding the Indian public and Indian voters, again, BJP is trying to keep them in echo chambers and just trying to reflect what their own understanding is of the country.
All right. Now, I'd like to reiterate some more statements by the Foreign Office spokesperson because I feel they are very important. She says the bravado and jingoism exhibited by Indian leaders exposes a reckless and extremist mindset. She said the mindset calls into question India's capacity to be a responsible steward of its strategic capability. Also, on the other hand, the purpose of Pakistan's strategic capability is to safeguard its sovereignty and defend its territorial integrity. Herein lies a very important point. Pakistan has also clearly demonstrated its resolve to defend itself in the past and would not hesitate to do so in the future should the Indian side choose to embark on a misadventure. Is Pakistan's message clear to India?
I think it's been clear since day one, since we tested the nuclear weapons, and another anniversary we'll be celebrating soon. Pakistan's strategic assets have been defensive. On the other hand, India has been obsessed with aligning Pakistan, and it has adopted an offensive posture, whereas Pakistan has always maintained a defensive posture. And we have also exhibited this throughout our interactions with India, recently 2019. And this is not the first time that India is using all of these. India is also building up its military capabilities with the help of different foreign investors, and it's also trying to make its own indigenization campaign to build up its military and its defense modernization. But again, we have repeatedly stressed this, that our strategic assets are for defensive purpose, and there have been several statements targeting our strategic assets, that they are just there to exist, and we're not going to to utilize that or depend then or use them as a deterrent. But we have, as in this highlighted in the statement as well, we hold all the capabilities necessary to deter a larger enemy next to us.
All right. Just a few months ago, we've discussed that in previous shows as well. Pakistan exposed details of India's campaign of extrajudicial and transnational assassinations on Pakistani soil. Other newspapers, international publications have also mentioned this, whether it be The Guardian, whether it be The Washington Post. Does India's continuous emphasis on its readiness to take aggressive actions within Pakistan constitute a tacit admission of guilt, as mentioned by the Foreign Office spokesperson?
This story has evolved a lot since it first came out in January this year. Recently, a report by Guardian highlighted great details about this Indian attempts in Pakistan, and several of the times its politicians have mentioned that they will enter Pakistan and they will carry out these attacks if necessary. The Guardian report, it mentions why India is thinking this. India has this perception that it is going to be a global power, a major power, although it's miserably failing in its attempt to be a regional power. The report highlights that India is sort of inspired by Israel or Russia's KGB attempts, and several defense analysts in Washington have stated that India is trying to justify what it's doing by saying that, oh, US conducted counterterrorism operations outside of its territory. So this kind of shows where India is coming from and what India's approach is towards extrajudicial killings in Pakistan as well as abroad. We have seen that in the US and Canada, and there are instances of the same issues in UK and Australia. So this kind of, the report also highlighted that several of the reporters linked with this report highlighted that senior raw officials directly denied of being involved in this, but they highlighted that such an action cannot be taken place without the
tacit approval of Narendra Modi, because he is the one who controls raw.
Yes, all of them are directly involved in it. So this kind of further confirms their involvement as well as their guilt.
Now, India and Indian BJP leaders have time and again issued belligerent statements vis-a-vis Azad Jammu and Kashmir, which they call POK. Now, regarding this inflammatory rhetoric about Azad Jammu and Kashmir, the Foreign Office spokesperson said that we reiterate that historical facts, legal principles, moral considerations and ground realities refute India's baseless claims. She also said that Jammu and Kashmir remains an internationally recognized disputed territory, and the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions clearly mandate a plebiscite under UN auspices for its final determination. And here she's talking about Indian legally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. No amount of inflated Indian statements can change this reality. India should therefore focus on implementing these resolutions instead of indulging in fantasies of grandeur. I really like this term, fantasies of grandeur, because it's exactly what is happening. Will India ever accept the official, real and UN stance on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir instead of this baseless rhetoric?
We have seen several attempts of India to take over the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, the 2019 incident, we've seen in this election, because of the August 2019 incident of revocation of Article 370 and 35A, in this election, this is the first time in over 3 decades that we have seen the highest turnout in Kashmir. And why is that so? Because of Indian actions in of August 2019, these people are saying that we are voting and we are coming out to vote, men and women, all of them, to express their anger towards the BJP.
Is that why the BJP did not field a candidate this time in Kashmir?
This is one of the reasons that they're not there anymore, despite them trying to campaign in the area.
Because you know, the fact is that if they fielded a candidate and that candidate loses, it also shows that their whole concept of Article 35A, 370 is lopsided. It does not have any basis or ground whatsoever.
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. I'll continue with the Foreign Office spokesperson, who says that we urge Indian politicians to cease dragging Pakistan into their domestic politics for electoral gains and to handle strategic sensitive matters with the utmost caution. And she also said that we call on the international community to take note of Indian leadership's belligerent rhetoric, which of course poses a grave threat to regional peace and security. doesn't the world know what India's rhetoric is, its modus operandi is, how it operates? Has it taken note, by the way, whether it be apparent or not in your point of view? If so, where is the International Criminal Court? Where is the FATF? Why is there no pressure on India to regulate itself?
In the last few years, we've seen India get on the highest tables and be one of the top topic of discussion in Washington. But recently, because of India's own actions, it's become not one of the largest priority. Now Washington is more focused on China and the Ukraine war and what's happening in the Middle East. Because of India's own actions, India is no more on the agenda in Washington. And rather, we have seen so many of analysts in Washington criticize India, and these are the analysts who were initially very pro-India. And despite what happened with the Canada incident and with the U.S. incident, they still maintained a very pro-India stance. But now, because a lot more is being revealed and a lot more is going on into the investigation, and now the West is learning how India operates. Pakistan has been warning the West for a long while.
It's becoming more and more apparent to the world that whatever Pakistan has been saying over the years has been nothing but the truth.
Exactly, that's what's happening, and that's what they're realizing now. And due to this, we can see that a lot of the even pro-India analysts within the Washington squares are no more that pro of India.
Because they know the reality, because they can't pressurize the West now, that the West itself has been a target of these Indian machinations, the incidents that have happened in the US, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in other countries as well. Our Foreign Office spokesperson says the vision of peace, progress and prosperity in South Asia can only be attained through the peaceful resolution of all the outstanding disputes, which include the issue of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Do you see that happening anytime? How can India be put on the table with Pakistan? Because you know very well that Pakistan has time and again, sent the olive branch to India and said we should sit together and, thought all the issues that confront us, and that includes the issue of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir on the forefront. But India has always refused to talk about this issue. How can India be persuaded or pressurized to do so?
Pakistan, like you said, has extended the olive branch, and we've been trying to negotiate. And several times, several of our leaders have opened the offer to negotiate, to talk about it, even though we have set out clear conditions on our demands and how are we going to talk. But we've seen that throughout the early 2000s in the comprehensive dialogue, we have tried to develop several confidence building measures. We've tried to discuss Kashmir and all the outstanding disputes. But every time that we have tried to do this, somehow the spoilers make it happen, and then the negotiations fail. This is what we've observed repeatedly. But since BJP came in power in 2014, we have not seen any positive sign towards Pakistan. Before the election started, a lot of the analysts were of the view that Modi government, after the elections, might engage with Pakistan, and there could be some sort of ease of tension.
Do you really see that happening?
And but now we've seen the statements that's coming out of India and all the leaders that they're trying to project. It appears that they're being more aggressive towards Pakistan. Although there was some hope that there could be some communication or back channel or some sort of dialogue between the two countries, but the rhetoric is turning more and more anti-Pakistan, more and more aggressive Pakistan. And this time, what I mentioned earlier about the Akhand Bharat and the whole concept, this is what's coming into play next, it appears.
Exactly. And I'd just like to refer to some of those comments that were made by Narendra Modi. He warns of launching cross-border strikes on Pakistan. He ridicules Pakistan while making a veiled reference to a remark made by National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah. Narendra Modi says the India bloc seems to have leaders who are scared of Pakistan and have nightmares of its nuclear power. Then he said, if Pakistan does not wear bangles, we will make the country wear these. I knew they did not have food grains, of course, another way of maligning Pakistan. Now I come to know they do not even have adequate supply of bangles. When you hear these statements, you see the future of the Pakistan-India relationship and the outlook extremely bleak. What are the indicators that could make this move towards a positive trajectory in your point of view once the elections are over, irrespective of who comes into power?
This is what we have discussed several times during our meetings and research groups. Is it that we don't have the capacity? Is it that we don't have the resources, or are we not in contact, or are we not in communication? It's none of that. It's the will, it's the political will on both sides to communicate and to engage. BJP will come in power, but what will be the impact of this on the bilateral relations with Pakistan, but also with the other countries within South Asian region? India currently does not maintain any positive relations with any of these South Asian countries. Apart from there are few instances of good relations with the South Asian countries, but majority of the relations are torn within South Asian. So this will have a long-lasting impact, although peace is obviously preferred over any sort of debacle within the region, but the growing aggressive posture of India and
the hegemonic attitude as well of Narendra Modi and his cronies, and the whole RSS philosophy that talks, as you say, of a greater Bharat or an Akhand Bharat, is something that should not only make the West worried, but also other countries in the region extremely worried.
Yes, that's what we have seen. China and Chinese analysts also worrying about India's growing aggressive posture on the northern border. So and also as well as on the Indian Ocean side. So this is what's really concerning for all the states in the region.
That is so true. Thank you so very much, Maheen Shafeeq, regional affairs expert, to have joined us and to have discussed, very important points of the Indian elections. We have seen the BJP government time and again using the anti-Muslim card, demonizing Muslims, demeaning Muslims, making digs at Muslims. But the way they have used Pakistan card before, but the way they have been using it this time in the elections sets a new precedent or a new benchmark. And I don't know what's going to be happening if and when the BJP comes into power, and what will be their tactic vis-a-vis Pakistan, and will they continue to destabilize Pakistan as they have been doing through direct and indirect measures, through fifth generation warfare, or through other matters altogether? That I think only time will tell. Thank you again so much, Maheen, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and our second story concerns climate change. Now, Pakistan, as we all know, is one of the countries that has been grappling with the effects of climate change since quite some time. Whether it be shifting and unpredictable weather patterns, whether it be the increase in temperatures across the world, including in Pakistan, whether it be the prediction that the Punjab region is going to be extremely hot in the next couple of days as well, whether it be the glaciers melting, whether it be the GLOF phenomenon, whether it be the floods, whether it be what of course happened in 2022. Then of course what also one of the reports suggests that Pakistan might also be subject to some kind of a drought in 2025. A lot of things, and all of this has a serious impact on our agriculture, on our kharif crops, on our other crops as well. Then the incessant rains that happen all of a sudden, that should not happen at a time when the crops are to be cut, and that is what also creates an issue for the farmers as well. At the same time, the carbon dioxide emissions since 2016 can be traced to a group of 57 fossil fuel and cement producers, researchers have recently indicated as well. And other researchers have also recently indicated, and that has been published on Bloomberg, and they talk about the increase in temperatures and what kind of impact this is going to have on different regions, but they specifically talk of Asia, of South Asia, and of course our region as well. We've been joined by two guests. Our first guest joins us online and we'll be joined by our second guest. Our first, in fact, is in the studios, and our second guest is online, who will be joining us later in the studios. We've been joined by a long lost friend, Sarmad Iqbal. He's the head of policy of International Rescue Committee. Thank you very much, Sarmad, to have joined us, and thank you to have accepted the invitation to come in the studios.
Thank you very much for inviting me again after a very long time.
Yes, definitely. So we say the feeling is mutual. Our second guest is Laurie Laybourn. She's an environmental researcher and joins us from the United Kingdom. Laurie, thank you very much to have joined us. Let's begin with you, Sarmad. Scientists conclude that the April heat wave that swept through Asia, bringing temperatures as high as 46 degrees centigrade in some places, was much more severe and likely to occur had it been in a world without climate change. The World Weather Attribution Group uses computer models. It uses ground observations to trace the footprint of heat-trapping gases in the affected areas. They talk about hundreds of people who've died due to heat-related causes, although more fatalities were likely to have gone unreported. Do you see this exacerbating in the coming months? Because summers have not really started, have they?
Well, I'll start off my conversation with Antonio Guterres's statement which he made a couple of years back, where he said we are now entering into a boiling era now. We are into the boiling era now, and we are seeing the heat waves transform the whole of the environment and climate, and then it's resulting into erratic situations across the globe, and especially in the Gulf states, and then moving on Pakistan. Summers have not started, but the temperatures are soaring high, and there's a warning of heat waves for many parts of Pakistan,
including in Punjab.
Exactly, and even Sindh is suffering right now from the worst one.
But Sindh has always suffered, unfortunately, because of the heat, because of also the humidity that that kind of exacerbates that heat and the effects that happen. Laurie, coming to you, scientists find that in areas such as Palestine, climate change has made the heat wave 5 times more likely than it would have been in pre-industrial times, and 1.7 degrees Celsius hotter in the Philippines, where temperatures were 1.2 degrees Celsius higher. The researchers estimate that this year's heat wave would have been impossible without decades of burning fossil fuels. Have the COPs, all the COPs that happen, even this year we're going to have a COP later this year, made the fossil fuel producers understand the eventualities? If they have understood it, why are they not implementing it despite the pledges?
So fossil fuel producing countries, the ones that produce a lot of, that hold a lot of fossil fuel reserves, they do know about this. They have known for a very long time. And in many ways, we have to keep asking them the question that you have asked, which is that why have they not acted, even though they have had this knowledge in mind for a very long time? The answer is to do with 2 P's, with profit and with power. Huge profits are made from the extraction and the burning of fossil fuels, and the power balance of the world in some ways is determined by those fossil fuels and by the burning of them. It's very difficult, of course, to get economies off fossil fuels. They're based on them in many respects, but I feel there isn't enough of a focus in those COPs on those 2 P words, on profit and power, and it's only when we really start to talk explicitly about those and the need to change who and how we make profits and the power balance in the world that we will really start to put our finger on the problem here. We don't talk enough about how there are some of these bad guys in the context of climate change. There are people who are more responsible, there are more companies that are more responsible than others, and we need to make sure that we're talking about them explicitly now.
I hope that talk really emanates and takes precedence, because as you said, the 2 P's, the profit and power balance, is something that has been going on since quite some time, and specifically countries in the West need to look inwards and also to exert pressure on each other in order to bring that policy, implement that policy in principle, because that is the most important point at this juncture. The way we are seeing the heat waves engulfing the whole world, what will happen when the same heat waves of the same magnitude start engulfing the West? People will not be able to bear it the way we in South Asia bear it, and we have been doing that for quite some time. But in the West, that is not the norm. So I really hope that realization comes sooner than later. Stay online with us. I have another guest in this studio. South Asia, Sarmad, which was the focus of 2 studies in 2022 and 2023. It talks about abnormal heat was found to be 45 times more likely to occur because of climate change. The researchers find at whether El Nino, the naturally occurring warm current in the Pacific Ocean, might have played a role in the event. They also conclude that while it raised temperatures in certain countries, it did not influence the West Asian heat wave. Which areas have been specifically targeted by the El Nino phenomenon?
Well, this phenomena is evolving, I would say. Scientists would predict certain areas. The people playing with numbers or people working with numbers will predict another area. However, the impact of El Nino does not limit itself to one geographic location. So it's spread all across. South Asia is bearing the brunt of it, and the poor countries are bearing the most of it. For example, Pakistan has been faced with, last year was unprecedented heat, unprecedented temperatures. We had huge heat wave warnings. We had huge programs being run in the country to protect our citizens from this scorching heat. Awareness raising was done, but you know, there was one thing that failed to make the headlines. Was because of the heat, our crops were being destroyed. Our crops were producing less. Our crops were actually shrinking in capacity of production. You know, the heat wave does not only impact the humans, it's going to impact our food chain. Our food chain. Food chain means security of food supply for the population.
True.
So it's unprecedented. It's going to hit all these regions, that especially the South Asian regions, and as it evolves, you don't know where it's going to stop or where it's going to end up. But we are actually contributing to the heating of this world. We are actually in the boiling era. We are actually now suffering from the boiling temperatures, and now it has a human face attached to this boiling.
All right, let's talk about the economic implications. A study drives home the prospect of wide-ranging systemic impacts on economy. Food inflation we've just talked about, low level productivity, unemployment, all of which are going to be worsened by the heat wave that is going to come in the next months. A separate study 2 years back found that heat may contribute to 650 billion hours a year of lost labor globally, having cost an estimated $2.1 billion equivalent in 2017 alone. What can be done? What remedial measures should be put into place so that it doesn't become worse in coming years in 2025? Because here now the summer is upon us, but what about 2025, 2026, when things would even get worse?
It does, and we have projections of it going really bad. However, there's a human side to this in this cost as well. There was one study which categorically or explicitly stated that the elderly population in the world, especially in the South Asian countries, are going to suffer the most. They're going to be hit hard. We're going to lose the labor within the scorching heat. That's going to contribute to worsening economic situations or household economies. It's going to impact everyone. It's going to impact the poor class the most. Why? Because they can't go out to do labor in the open sun. A lot of construction activity, a lot of agricultural activity, or other activities for that matter, which are not done under the shade, are going to be impacted because of this rising temperatures and the straight sun or the heat. So it's going to be a massive impact, not just the agriculture or food. It's going to have a toll on the economic cycle of this. Of
course, because when you have low level productivity, unemployment, it's going to affect the economy in general as well. Laurie, what's your take as far as the economic implications of climate change or of this heat wave is concerned on the West?
About how climate change impacts systems is really important, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Often, at least in countries like the UK, we see headlines about climate change that talk about the direct impact, the immediate storm, the immediate heat wave and the problems that causes. What we have less of a focus on is the knock-on, the next thing that happens, the consequence of that immediate impact. So as climate change worsens, it won't just be the storms and the heat waves we care about. It will be, as we were just hearing, the consequences for our food supply that then really matter. And I remember a number of years ago at one of the UN climate conferences, at one of the COPs, the Pakistan delegation had on their stall a catchphrase that said, "What happens in Pakistan does not stay in Pakistan." And that really points to how these impacts in one place around the world can lead to knock-on consequences that then impact other places. So for the UK, for us, a lot of that will be impacts abroad on food production that then we feel at home because of our food supply and food prices. And a crucial detail here is that, as we were just talking about, these are matters of security, of the security of our food supply, the stability of our economies and so on. And in any other situation, where political leaders were allowing those threats to security to happen, it would lead to a political response. But at the moment, we've yet got to a situation where people around the world, voting populations, say, hang on a minute, you, political leaders, are leaving us unsafe. You're leaving us insecure. So we need to make sure that our politics of climate change recognises these threats to security and then demands the high standards of politicians that we might expect in any other areas of security, like health security or the security of our economies and so on.
That's so true, but it's so easy to discuss about it and to highlight the important points, but when it comes to implementation, it's so unfortunate that none of the countries that matter the most implement it in letter and principle. They highlight the effects, they make the pledges at the different COPs, at the different important moods, but when it comes to implementation, I have yet to see a proper implementation of all the pledges that has been made at different COPs. This said, climate scientists, Laurie, my next question is also to you, then I'll refer to my esteemed guest in the studio. Climate scientists show that global temperatures have been rising rapidly in the decades, and also the United Nations says that the last time the world was consistently this warm may have been more than 100,000 years ago, and these readings have come from records like ice cores, deep sea sediments, clues hidden deep in the trunks of ancient trees that reveal that last summer was a northern hemisphere's hottest in 2,000 years. Also, last year had already been confirmed as the world's warmest on record by a large margin, at least since 1850, due to climate change. Should we use tools such as these ice cores, deep sea sediments, trunks of ancient trees? Is nature going to give us the ultimate clues on what we need to do in order to combat climate change?
Nature does provide a huge number of the tools that we need. We know that we have a crisis with nature as well. Forests are being cut down, animal species destroyed, populations being lost. That is a serious problem independent of climate change. But to deal with that problem will also help us deal with climate change as well. To regrow forests, to restore degraded soils will also suck carbon out of the atmosphere. So there are these huge overlaps, huge complements between dealing with the nature crisis and dealing with the climate crisis as well. And we are not doing enough about that globally. We need to make sure that we're protecting and then restoring land, and that will also help us deal with the climate problem as well. And let me just quickly address your point about powerful countries, Western countries not acting enough. There is huge recognition of that in those countries, including here in the UK. The government's own advisors, official advisors on climate change, have said that the government is currently not doing enough, and there is a political backlash against the current government and its relative inaction. So that is something that is definitely felt by large segments of society in those countries, and they want more to happen. And they also, crucially, want more to happen in a way that does support those countries, including, I would say, Pakistan, who are on the front line, and to make sure that we are working much better collectively as well. So there are those political countries that really do agree and want to deal with that huge inequality and disparity globally in countries like the UK.
All right. Coming back to you, Sarmad, Laurie was talking about the climate representatives in Pakistan. Let's refer to our own co-leader to the Prime Minister on climate change, Romina Khurshid Alam, who has today said that global warming is adversely affecting glaciers, ecosystems, lives and livelihoods of the people in mountain regions across the world, including in Pakistan. And we have talked about it in the past as well. She talks about the challenges of rapidly melting glaciers, the loss of ecosystem, protections of life and livelihoods, not possible without the global community joining hands to tackle the drivers of global warming. Do people across the world understand Pakistan's plight? I know they have pledged a lot. I know they have said that they will do the needful, but we have also discussed in previous programs that all the pledges that were made when Pakistan went through the devastating floods of 2022 were not met with. How should Pakistan convince the world?
You know, this is a dilemma that the impacts of Pakistan are not being translated into a language which is understood, but at the same time which leads them to actions. Now, coming back to the context of Pakistan, Romina has just mentioned a few representative things of the impact. However, if the glaciers melt, you have no supply of fresh water available within the country. What would that lead to? Desertification. Why? Because people are going to move out of those areas. Migration. Is Pakistan ready to bear that? Okay. The second thing is, if your glaciers melt, would they not cause devastation while the water flows down, such as the formation of Fattabad Lake, although that was a God's gift to us, but that was a critical situation which we were faced with. The third thing is your forest cover, if it goes down and down, is it actually allowing us to have cleaner air, or is it allowing us to have worsened air across the country? Because these corridors that we have, they're bringing us fresh air as well, and the air that we breathe. So a lot of contamination goes out. But if this thing goes barren, then what?
All right.
Then your blue economy, water.
Exactly.
You have water, fresh water as well as salty water. But with rising temperatures, you are losing fresh water, and you have no clue on how do you work with the salty water, brackish water to be consumed for your community, which means it's going to be a big gap that we need to work upon.
All right.
Let alone agriculture, water for agriculture. It's a massive impact that we need to actually look into. And coming back to the point about heat waves impact, we've spoken about elderly, we've spoken about food production, food chain. But Pakistan has 3.3 million children on the streets. Has anyone spoken about them? How would the heat impact those children?
Exactly. All those who work all day long in the sweltering heat.
Those are certain burning questions that we need to actually address, and we need to find a solution, a lasting one to it. And yes, at the international moods, at the international conferences, we need to be proactive, yet be very firm in our words, in our actions, in our programs, or in our solutions that we propose to the world.
All right. Last question to you, Laurie. Our coordinator to the Prime Minister on climate change says that adopting sustainable means of production and consumption is key to tackle climate change and its impacts on various socio-economic sectors, particularly water, agriculture, energy, health, and education. If I were to ask you to give me a resume of the measures that need to be taken, what would they be?
At this stage, they need to be things that help reduce emissions, so the contribution to the problem, while also ensuring that the country is better adapted to the problem. So, for example, farming, let's say agriculture, that is more sustainable, that's better for the soil, that's better for biodiversity, for nature, for the nature around it, will reduce the contribution of emissions, so the cause of the problem, while also ensuring that farming is more resilient, more adapted, more able to deal with the impacts of climate change. And that goes all over the place. So we're just hearing there about the plight of, say, the urban poor in cities, cities that have more green spaces, that have water in them, that have buildings that are constructed in a way in which they can be cooler in hotter conditions. Those are all things that will help deal with the consequences of the problem, while also dealing with the causes of the problem by reducing emissions as well. And that exists all across the economy. And in many ways, the things that we needed to do to make a healthier, more prosperous society irrelevant to climate change are precisely the things that we need to do to deal with climate change itself. And there really are those, what we could describe as win-wins when it comes to dealing with the climate problem. We needed to have better buildings that were better for people to live in them anyway, let alone to deal with the climate problem. We needed to have better farming and more sustainable farming anyway, and then we have the climate problem as well. So that's the great hope here, is that we can cultivate all of those win-wins, and there are many of them, and it's for voters and people who can vote in countries to demand that of their governments, because this is, as we've ascertained over this conversation, one of the greatest threats to security, to our shared security, but dealing with it also provides us with the greatest opportunity for our shared security as well, to improve that.
That's true, but let's every big effort is a collective effort and a global effort, and that needs to be done. And I hope the pledges eventually by this COP are translated into actions. Thank you very much, Laurie, Laybourn, environmental researcher from the United Kingdom, to have joined us. Thank you very much, Sarmad. Sarmad Iqbal, Head of Policy International Rescue Committee, to have joined us. You are always our savior when it comes to climate change. I hope the measures taken by your organization also prove to be beneficial for Pakistan in the coming summers as well. We wish you and people like yourself who are working diligently to revert the effects of climate change all the very best. Let's talk about the last two topics very quickly. The first is on the funeral prayers of Shaheed Major Babar Naazi, who was martyred in an intelligence-based operation against terrorists. These funeral prayers were offered in Job in Balochistan. Senior military and civil officials, as well as representatives of the public and civil administration, participated in his funeral prayers. The martyr will be buried in his hometown with full military honor. Also, the armed forces of Pakistan, as per a statement by the ISPR, stand by the nation and are determined to thwart terrorist attempts to sabotage the peace and stability of this country. We have seen the people of our forces always there on the front line to defend our motherland. While we are sleeping, they are sacrificing their lives and defending our motherland from all the existential threats that still continue to confront our country. So it's extremely important that we need to laud their services and to continue to be by their side in the good times and in the bad. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Google has unveiled an artificial intelligence that can find, of all things, lost spectacles. Now, AI systems are now able to interpret information in images via a phone camera and videos and sounds and in spoken languages that now have recently been shown off by Google. You can see the parallel images of this meet that was going on under Google. In one demo, a prototype artificial intelligence powered assistant running on a phone was able to answer the age-old question, where did I put my glasses? A lot of people ask that. Where did I put my glasses? Where did I put my car keys? I know these are very simple questions, but sometimes very difficult to answer because you don't remember where you've put them. This comes a day after rival OpenAI's launch of its latest AI system, the GPT-4o, which included an eye-catching presentation in which it read human expressions via a phone camera and chatted and flirted fluently. The lengths to which artificial intelligence can go is unbelievable, but we need to also curtail the use of AI to a certain extent. It's good to use it. It's good to use it under certain boundaries, but those boundaries also need to be maintained. I feel it's very important, as a lot of analysts have been saying. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.